The rain-slicked streets of Brooklyn glistened under the streetlights. But inside the cozy cafe, the world felt warm and alive. Ethan Carter's heart raced as he flipped open his sketchbook, its pages brimming with ideas for the perfect engagement. Across from him, his best friend, Jamie Torres, leaned forward, eyes sparkling with a secret he couldn't wait to share. "Ethan, you're gonna kill this," Jamie said, his voice low but electric. "I want it to be perfect for Lena. She deserves the world." Ethan nodded, his pen hovering over a sketch of a rooftop proposal under a canopy of fairy lights. But as Jamie spoke, Ethan's chest tightened, a familiar ache he couldn't name. For 10 years, Ethan and Jamie had been inseparable. They'd met at NYU, two freshmen bonding over late-night pizza and shared dreams of conquering New York. Ethan, with his quick wit and meticulous nature, became a sought-after event planner. Jamie, a graphic designer with a contagious laugh, lit up every room. They'd seen each other through breakups, job losses, and family dramas. But this planning Jamie's proposal to his girlfriend, Lena, was different. It felt monumental, like the end of something Ethan hadn't realized he was holding on to. "Rooftop at the Standard. Maybe," Ethan suggested, sketching a quick outline. "String quartet. Her favorite flowers, lilies." "Right." Jamie grinned, nodding, but his gaze lingered on Ethan a beat too long. Ethan ignored the flutter in his stomach, chalking it up to nerves. He was good at this, making other people's dreams come true. But lately, every detail he planned for Jamie felt like a piece of his own heart being carved out. Lena was perfect for Jamie. Confident, kind, and fiercely intelligent. She was the kind of woman who made everyone feel seen. Ethan liked her, loved her, even as a friend. But as he sketched, his mind wandered to late nights with Jamie, their shoulders brushing as they watched old movies. Or the time Jamie had grabbed his hand during a crowded concert, pulling him through the chaos with a laugh. Those moments felt like secrets, locked away in a box Ethan didn't dare open. "Earth to Ethan," Jamie teased, snapping his fingers. "You okay? Man, you look like you're planning a funeral, not an engagement." Ethan forced a laugh, closing the sketchbook. "Just want it to be right," he said, his voice quieter than he meant. Jamie's smile softened, and for a moment, the cafe's hum faded, leaving just the two of them, suspended in a truth neither could say. That night, Ethan lay awake in his small apartment, the city's hum a distant lullaby. He stared at the ceiling, replaying Jamie's words, his smile, the way his hand had brushed Ethan's when passing the coffee. He told himself it was nothing, just the stress of planning something so big. But deep down, a question gnawed at him. Why did this feel like losing Jamie? The next morning, Ethan met Lena at her favorite bookstore in Williamsburg. She was radiant, her dark curls bouncing as she hugged him. "Jamie's so lucky to have you," she said, flipping through a book of poetry. "This proposal's gonna be epic because of you." Ethan smiled, but his throat tightened. He wanted to be happy for her, for them. So why did every detail, every flower, every song feel like it belonged to a life he'd imagined for himself? Over the next week, Ethan threw himself into the planning. He scouted venues, called florists, and even designed a custom ring box with Jamie's input. Each decision was a step closer to Jamie's future with Lena, but also a step further from something Ethan couldn't name. Late one night, as he finalized the playlist, Jamie texted, "You're the best. Couldn't do this without you." Ethan stared at the message, his heart pounding. He typed a reply, then deleted it. Instead, he closed his laptop and sat in the dark, wondering when his best friend's happiness had started to feel like his own heartbreak. By the end of the week, the plan was nearly complete. Ethan had booked the rooftop, ordered the lilies, and even convinced a local band to play Lena's favorite song. But as the details came together, so did a realization Ethan couldn't ignore. Every choice he made, the music, the lights, the intimacy of the setting, wasn't just for Jamie and Lena. It was the proposal Ethan had always dreamed of, the one he'd never admitted he wanted. And the person he saw standing across from him in those dreams wasn't Lena. It was Jamie. The city pulsed outside Ethan's window, but inside, his apartment felt like a confession booth. He sat on his couch, the sketchbook open to a page of scribbled notes for Jamie's proposal. Each word, candles, stars, forever, felt like a betrayal of something he'd buried deep. He wasn't supposed to feel this way. Jamie was his best friend, straight as an arrow, and in love with Lena. Ethan had no right to the ache in his chest, no claim to the dreams creeping into his nights. The next day, Ethan met Jamie at a flower market in Chelsea. The air was thick with the scent of roses and peonies, vendors calling out deals under colorful awnings. Jamie was in his element, joking with a florist about the perfect lily vibe. Ethan watched him, the way his hands moved animatedly, the way his laugh lit up the gray morning. "You're quiet today," Jamie said, nudging Ethan's shoulder as they walked. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," Ethan lied, adjusting his scarf. "Just focused. Want this to be perfect for you." Jamie's eyes softened, and he slung an arm around Ethan's shoulders, pulling him close. "You're too good to me, man." The warmth of Jamie's touch lingered longer than it should have, and Ethan hated how much he craved it. Back at the cafe, they spread out photos of the rooftop venue on the table. Jamie leaned close, pointing at a picture. "This spot, right here, with the city skyline. That's where I'll ask her." Ethan nodded, his throat tight. He could see it so clearly, Jamie on one knee, Lena's eyes shining, the city glittering behind them. It was beautiful. It was right. So why did it hurt so much? That evening, Ethan met his friend Sarah for drinks at a dive bar in the East Village. Sarah, a sharp-tongued therapist with a knack for cutting through Ethan's defenses, raised an eyebrow when he mentioned the proposal. "You're basically planning your own dream engagement," she said, sipping her whiskey. "Ever think about why that is?" Ethan froze, the beer bottle cold against his palm. "It's for Jamie," he said, too quickly. Sarah's gaze was unrelenting. "Is it, though?" Her words haunted him as he walked home through the chilly night. He'd always known he was gay, had come out in college, with Jamie cheering him on at his first Pride parade. But loving Jamie, that was a line he'd never let himself cross, not even in his thoughts. Jamie was straight, happy, and about to build a life with Lena. Ethan was just the best friend, the planner, the guy who made things happen. But Sarah's question lingered. What if this wasn't just about Jamie? The next morning, Ethan threw himself back into the work. He met with the band, finalized the menu, and even scouted a backup venue in case of rain. But every task felt heavier, like he was building a stage for a play he'd never star in. Jamie noticed, texting him late one night, "You sure you're okay? You seem off." Ethan stared at the message, his thumb hovering over the keyboard. He wanted to type the truth, "I am falling apart because I'm in love with you," but instead, he replied, "Just tired." "All good." The following week, Ethan and Jamie visited the jeweler to pick up the ring. It was a simple gold band with a single diamond, elegant and timeless. Jamie held it up, grinning. "Think she'll love it." Ethan swallowed hard, forcing a smile. She'd be crazy not to. But as Jamie slipped the ring back into its box, Ethan's eyes lingered on his hands, imagining a different moment, a different ring, a different life. By the time they left the shop, Ethan's chest felt like it might cave in. He excused himself, claiming a work call, and ducked into an alley. Leaning against the brick wall, he let out a shaky breath. The truth was undeniable now. Sharp and unrelenting, he was in love with Jamie. Not just a crush, not just a fleeting thought, but a deep, consuming love that had been growing for years. And every detail he planned for this proposal was a piece of the life he'd always wanted with Jamie. As the engagement date loomed closer, Ethan faced a choice. He could keep pretending, keep planning, keep smiling through the pain. Or he could confront the truth, risk their friendship, and maybe lose Jamie forever. The thought terrified him, but so did the idea of living a lie. For the first time, Ethan wondered if he could be brave enough to want something for himself. The rooftop was a canvas of possibilities, bathed in the golden glow of a late September sunset. Ethan stood at the edge, clipboard in hand, directing the setup crew as they strung fairy lights and arranged lilies in elegant vases. Every detail was perfect, just as he'd envisioned. But as he surveyed the scene, a hollow ache settled in his chest. This was Jamie's moment, not his. And yet, every light, every flower, felt like a piece of his own heart laid bare. Jamie arrived an hour later, his energy electric as he took in the setup. "Ethan, this is unreal," he said, clapping him on the back. "You're a genius." Ethan managed a smile, but his eyes drifted to Jamie's face, the way his dark hair caught the light, the way his smile seemed to hold 1,000 unspoken promises. "Just doing my job," Ethan said, his voice tight. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He paced his apartment, the sketchbook mocking him from the coffee table. He flipped it open, staring at the notes he'd written, Lena's favorite song, "Slow Dance," "Stars Above." Each word was a dagger, carving out the truth he'd been running from. He loved Jamie, not as a friend, not as a brother, but as the person he wanted to build a life with. The realization was both a relief and a terror, setting his heart free and caging it all at once. The next day, Ethan met Lena for a final walkthrough. She was radiant, her excitement contagious as she talked about Jamie. "He's been so happy lately," she said, adjusting a vase of lilies. "And it's because of you, Ethan. You're his rock." Ethan's smile faltered. He wanted to be more than Jamie's rock. He wanted to be his everything. As the engagement drew closer, Ethan's emotions became a storm he couldn't control. He threw himself into the final details, confirming the catering, checking the weather, coordinating with the photographer. But every task was a reminder of what he was losing. One night, after a long day of planning, Jamie invited him over for pizza and a movie. Their old tradition. They sat on Jamie's couch, the TV flickering with some rom-com neither was watching. "You've been weird lately," Jamie said, tossing a crust onto the box. "Talk to me." Ethan's heart pounded. He wanted to spill everything, to tell Jamie how every moment with him felt like a gift and a curse. But the words caught in his throat. "Just stressed," he said, avoiding Jamie's gaze. Jamie frowned, unconvinced, but let it go. As they watched the movie, their shoulders brushed, and Ethan's skin burned with the contact. He wondered if Jamie felt it too, or if it was just another moment he'd have to bury. The next morning, Ethan met Sarah again, this time at a park near his apartment. The leaves were turning, a riot of red and gold against the gray sky. "You're in love with him," Sarah said bluntly, tossing a pebble into the pond. Ethan didn't deny it. "What do I do?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Sarah's eyes were kind but firm. "You tell him, or you let him go. But you can't keep living in the middle." Her words echoed in Ethan's mind as he finalized the last details. The engagement was 2 days away, and the rooftop was ready, lights strung, lilies blooming, a stage set for Jamie and Lena's future. But Ethan's own future felt like a blank page, unwritten and terrifying. He imagined telling Jamie the truth, pictured his shock, his rejection. He imagined staying silent, watching Jamie build a life with Lena, and losing himself in the process. The night before the engagement, Ethan stood alone on the rooftop, the city sprawling below. The fairy lights glowed softly, casting shadows that danced like his own conflicted heart. He closed his eyes, picturing Jamie's smile, his laugh, the way he made Ethan feel like the only person in the world. For the first time, Ethan let himself dream of a different ending, one where he was brave enough to speak, brave enough to love. As the stars blinked above, Ethan made a decision. He didn't know if it would save him or break him, but he couldn't keep planning someone else's life while ignoring his own. Tomorrow, before the proposal, he would talk to Jamie. He would tell him the truth, no matter the cost. Morning broke over New York with a crisp clarity, the kind that made the city feel new. Ethan stood in his apartment, staring at his reflection in the mirror. His eyes were tired, shadowed by sleepless nights, but there was a resolve in them he hadn't seen before. Today was the day Jamie's engagement, and the day Ethan would finally speak his truth. He arrived at the rooftop early, checking every detail with a precision that bordered on obsession. The lilies were perfect, the lights glowed warmly, and the band was setting up in the corner. Everything was ready, except Ethan's heart. He clutched the ring box in his pocket, its weight a reminder of what he was about to risk. Jamie arrived at noon, looking nervous but radiant in a tailored blazer. "You're a miracle worker," he said, pulling Ethan into a quick hug. The contact sent a jolt through Ethan, and he pulled back, forcing a smile. "Just want you to have the best," he said, his voice steady despite the storm inside. They walked through the setup together, Jamie's excitement filling the air. "Lena's gonna lose it," he said, grinning. "This is exactly her." Ethan nodded, his throat tight. He wanted to say it now, to blurt out the truth before he lost his nerve. But the moment wasn't right, not here. Not yet. He needed Jamie alone, away from the weight of this perfect scene. That afternoon, they grabbed coffee at a small shop near the venue. Jamie was buzzing, talking about Lena, the future, the life they'd build. Ethan listened, his heart splitting with every word. Finally, as they sat at a corner table, Ethan took a deep breath. "Jamie, I need to tell you something." Jamie's smile faded, replaced by concern. "What's up? You look serious." Ethan's hands shook as he set down his coffee. The words were there, heavy and real, but saying them felt like stepping off a cliff. "I've been planning this for you," he started, his voice low. "And it's been harder than I thought, because it's made me realize something." Jamie leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "Realize what?" Ethan's heart pounded, the cafe fading around them. This was a moment he'd been dreading and craving. "I'm in love with you," he said, the words spilling out like a dam breaking. "I've been in love with you for years. And planning this proposal, it's been like planning the life I wanted with you." The silence that followed was deafening. Jamie's eyes widened, his expression unreadable. Ethan's chest tightened, waiting for the rejection he'd feared. But Jamie didn't speak. Instead, he reached across the table, his hand resting on Ethan's. He said softly, his voice thick. I don't know what to say." Ethan pulled his hand back, the warmth of Jamie's touch too much to bear. "You don't have to say anything," he said quickly. "I just needed you to know. Before you propose to Lena, before everything changes, I couldn't keep pretending." Jamie's face was a storm of emotion, shock, sadness, something Ethan couldn't name. I had no idea, he said finally. All this time. You've been. He trailed off, running a hand through his hair. Ethan, you're my best friend. You mean everything to me. But Lanash, my future. The words hit like a punch. But Ethan nodded, swallowing the pain. I know, he said. I just needed to be honest. For me. Jamie reached for him again. But Ethan stood, his chair scraping against the floor. I'll finish the setup, he said, his voice hollow. It'll be perfect for her. Before Jamie could respond, Ethan walked out, the city blurring through the tears he wouldn't let fall. That evening, as the rooftop filled with guests, Ethan moved like a ghost, checking details, directing staff. Lena arrived, radiant in a blue dress, unaware of the confession that had shattered Ethan's world. Jamie avoided his gaze, his own eyes heavy with something unspoken. As the band started playing, Ethan slipped to the back, watching as Jamie took Lena's hand, leading her to the center of the rooftop. The proposal was everything Ethan had planned: perfect, romantic, unforgettable. Lena's gasp echoed as Jamie knelt, the ring sparkling under the fairy lights. The crowd cheered, but Ethan couldn't hear it. He turned away, slipping down the stairs, leaving behind the life he'd built for someone else. The city felt different now, colder, as if it knew Ethan's heart had cracked open. He wandered the streets of Brooklyn, the echo of Lena's yes ringing in his ears. He'd done it, crafted a perfect moment for Jamie and Lena. And in doing so, he'd bared his soul and lost something he couldn't name. His phone buzzed with texts from Sarah, from the crew, but he ignored them, needing the silence to process what he'd done. He ended up at the pier, the Hudson River dark and restless under the night sky. He sat on a bench, the ring box still in his pocket, a cruel reminder of the day. Telling Jamie had been both a liberation and a wound. He'd expected rejection, but the reality of it, Jamie's soft, sad eyes, his hand pulling away, cut deeper than he'd imagined. Ethan had always been the planner, the one who fixed things. But this was one mess he couldn't organize away. Back at his apartment, Ethan poured a glass of whiskey and sat in the dark. The sketchbook lay on the table, a relic of his hopes. He flipped through it, each page a testament to his love for Jamie. The lights, the music, the lilies. He'd poured himself into this proposal, not just for Jamie, but because it was the closest he'd ever come to living his own dream. Now, that dream felt further away than ever. The next morning, Sarah showed up at his door, her face a mix of worry and exasperation. You can't just disappear like that, she said, pushing past him with a bag of bagels. Talk to me. Ethan sank onto the couch, the weight of the previous day spilling out. He told her everything: the confession, Jamie's response, the way the rooftop had felt like a stage for his own heartbreak. You did the right thing, Sarah said, her voice firm. You were honest. That's more than most people manage. Ethan shook his head, his eyes burning. It doesn't feel right. It feels like I ruined everything. Sarah reached for his hand, squeezing it. You didn't ruin anything. You gave yourself a chance to be real. Now you figure out what's next. What's next? The words haunted Ethan as he returned to work, taking on new clients, new events. He threw himself into the chaos of his job, hoping it would drown out the ache. But every wedding, every engagement, reminded him of Jamie. He avoided their usual haunts, ignored Jamie's texts, needing space to rebuild himself. Yet, late at night, he'd find himself scrolling through old photos, Jamie laughing at a bar, the two of them at Pride, their arms around each other, carefree and close. A week after the proposal, Jamie showed up at Ethan's apartment unannounced. He looked tired, his usual brightness dimmed. Can we talk? He asked, his voice low. Ethan hesitated, then let him in, his heart racing. They sat on opposite ends of the couch, the distance between them feeling like miles. I've been thinking about what you said. Jamie started, his hands clasped tightly. It's been messing with my head. You're my best friend. Ethan, I love you. But not like that. The words stung. But Ethan nodded, expecting them. I know, he said quietly. I just needed you to know how I felt. Jamie's eyes were wet, his voice breaking. I don't want to lose you. You're too important. Ethan wanted to scream, to ask why love had to be so complicated, why it couldn't be enough. Instead, he said, you won't lose me. I just need time. Jamie nodded, standing to leave. But at the door, he turned back. I'm sorry. He said, and then he was gone. Ethan spent the next days in a haze, trying to find his footing. He took Sarah's advice, signing up for a pottery class, something to keep his hands busy, his mind distracted. But Jamie was everywhere in the songs on the radio, the coffee shops they'd haunted, the dreams that woke Ethan in the middle of the night. He wondered if he'd ever stop loving him, or if this was just his life now, a heart forever tethered to someone he couldn't have. Time didn't heal the wound, but it taught Ethan how to carry it. Weeks turned into months, and he built a fragile routine work. Pottery, drinks with Sarah. He saw Jamie less, their texts growing sparse, each one a reminder of the distance between them. Ethan didn't blame Jamie. He was happy with Lena, planning a wedding, building a life. But every update Ethan heard through mutual friends, through social media, felt like salt in an open wound. One crisp November evening, Ethan attended a gallery opening for a client. The room buzzed with art and champagne, but his eyes caught on a familiar figure across the crowd, Jamie. He was alone, his hands in his pockets, studying a painting with a quiet intensity. Ethan's heart lurched, but he stayed rooted, unsure if he could face him. Jamie saw him first, his face lighting up before softening into something more guarded. Hey, he said, crossing the room. Didn't expect to see you here. Ethan forced a smile, his throat tight. Client event. You know me. Always working. They stood there, awkward, the weight of their last conversation hanging between them. How's Lena? Ethan asked, breaking the silence. Jamie's smile was genuine but tinged with something else. She's great. Wedding planning's a lot, but she's happy. Ethan nodded, the words hollow. And you? Jamie asked, his voice softer. You okay? Ethan wanted to lie, to say he was fine, but the truth slipped out. Getting there, he said, meeting Jamie's eyes. For a moment, it felt like old times, like they could slip back into their easy rhythm. But then Jamie's phone buzzed, and he glanced at it, breaking the spell. Lena, he said, apologetic. I should go? Ethan watched him leave, the gallery's lights blurring through unshed tears. He realized then that loving Jamie wasn't just about wanting him, it was about wanting him to be happy, even if it wasn't with Ethan. The thought was both freeing and devastating, a step toward letting go. Back in his pottery class, Ethan found solace in the clay, shaping it into something new, something his. One night, as he glazed a bowl, a man named Marcus joined the class. He was quiet, with kind eyes and a quick laugh, and he asked Ethan about his work. They talked for hours, the conversation easy, unburdened by history. For the first time in months, Ethan felt a spark of something new, something possible. He started seeing Marcus outside of class coffee dates, walks in the park, moments that felt light and hopeful. Marcus was different from Jamie, steady, open, unapologetically himself. He was out, proud and interested in Ethan, not just as a friend, but as something more. Ethan wasn't ready to dive in, but he let himself lean into the possibility. Let himself imagine a future that wasn't tied to Jamie. One evening, as Ethan and Marcus sat on a bench overlooking the city, Marcus took his hand. "You seem like you're carrying something heavy," he said gently. Ethan hesitated, then told him about Jamie. "Not everything, but enough." Marcus listened, his thumb brushing Ethan's hand. "Sounds like you loved him with everything you had," he said. "That's not something to be ashamed of." Ethan's eyes stung, but he nodded, grateful for the understanding. As winter settled over New York, Ethan felt himself changing. He still loved Jamie. Maybe always would. But the love was shifting, softening into something he could live with. He started planning events again with a new energy, pouring his heart into his work, not as an escape, but as a way to create beauty for others. He saw Jamie occasionally, brief moments at mutual friends' gatherings. And each time, the pain was a little less sharp. By the time spring arrived, Ethan was ready to face Jamie again, not as the lovesick friend, but as someone finding his own path. He didn't know what the future held with Marcus, with himself, but for the first time, he felt like it was his to write. Spring painted New York in soft greens and pinks, the city waking up from winter's grip. Ethan's life was finding a new rhythm, one where Jamie was a memory rather than a constant ache. He and Marcus were growing closer, their dates filled with laughter and quiet moments that felt like building something real. But Jamie's wedding loomed on the horizon, a reminder of the life Ethan had once dreamed of. One sunny afternoon, Ethan received an invitation in the mail, elegant, cream-colored, with Jamie and Lena's names in gold script. They'd asked him to be the best man. The request hit like a wave, pulling him under. He wanted to say yes, to be there for Jamie, but the thought of standing beside him as he married Lena felt like too much. He set the invitation on his table, unopened, and called Sarah. "You don't have to do it," she said over coffee, her voice steady. "You get to choose what's best for you." Ethan traced the rim of his cup. Torn. "I want to be there for him," he said, "but I don't know if I can watch him promise his life to someone else." Sarah's eyes were kind but unflinching. "Then tell him that. You've been honest before. You can do it again." Ethan spent days wrestling with the decision. He met Marcus for dinner, hoping to clear his head. Marcus listened as Ethan poured out his fears, his guilt, his lingering love for Jamie. "You're allowed to protect yourself," Marcus said, his hand warm over Ethan's. "You don't owe anyone your pain." The words settled into Ethan, giving him the courage to act. He texted Jamie, asking to meet at their old cafe. When they sat down, Jamie looked nervous, his hands fidgeting with a napkin. "I got the invitation," Ethan started, his voice steady. "And I'm honored, Jamie. But I can't be your best man." Jamie's face fell, but Ethan pressed on. "I love you, and I want you to be happy. But standing there, watching you marry Lena's too hard for me. I need to take care of myself." Jamie's eyes glistened, but he nodded. "I get it," he said quietly. "I hate that I hurt you. I never wanted that." Ethan reached across the table, squeezing his hand briefly. "You didn't hurt me. I hurt myself by not being honest sooner. But I'm figuring it out now." They sat in silence, the weight of their friendship settling around them, bruised but not broken. After that, Ethan focused on his own life. He took on bigger projects, planning galas and fundraisers with a passion he hadn't felt in months. He and Marcus grew closer, their relationship deepening into something steady, something real. Marcus wasn't Jamie, and Ethan was grateful for that. He didn't want a replacement. He wanted something new, something his. The day of Jamie's wedding came, and Ethan didn't attend. Instead, he spent it with Marcus, hiking in the Catskills. The air fresh and the world quiet. They sat on a hill, the valley stretching below, and Ethan felt a peace he hadn't known in years. He thought of Jamie, hoped he was happy, and let himself let go a little more. Back in the city, Ethan threw himself into his work, his art, his life. He started painting again, something he hadn't done since college, filling canvases with bold colors and raw emotion. He saw Jamie occasionally, brief moments that were bittersweet but no longer crushing. Their friendship was different now, quieter, but still there, a thread that wouldn't break. One evening, as Ethan and Marcus cooked dinner in Ethan's apartment, the radio played a song from Jamie's proposal playlist. Ethan paused, the memory sharp but no longer painful. Marcus noticed, slipping an arm around him. "You okay?" he asked. Ethan smiled, leaning into him. "Yeah," he said, and for the first time, he meant it. A year later, New York was a city of new beginnings for Ethan. His apartment was filled with paintings, each one a step toward healing, a testament to the life he was building. Marcus had become a constant, his quiet strength a balance to Ethan's intensity. They weren't perfect, but they were real, and Ethan was learning to love that. One summer evening, Ethan hosted a small gallery show for his paintings, a dream he'd shelved for years. The room buzzed with friends, clients, and strangers, all admiring the vibrant canvases. Sarah was there, beaming with pride, and Marcus stood by his side, his hand a steady anchor. As Ethan mingled, he saw a familiar figure at the door, Jamie. He hadn't seen Jamie in months, not since a brief coffee catch-up where they'd both been careful, polite. Jamie looked good, his wedding band glinting under the gallery lights. "This is incredible, he said, his voice warm. "I'm so proud of you." Ethan smiled, the old ache a faint echo now. "Thanks for coming," he said, meaning it. They talked for a while, catching up on small things: Jamie's new job, Lena's promotion, Ethan's art. It wasn't the same as before, but it was enough. Jamie hugged him before leaving, a quick, tight embrace that said what words couldn't. As he watched Jamie go, Ethan felt a weight lift. He'd loved Jamie, still did in a way, but it no longer defined him. Later that night, as the gallery emptied, Marcus helped Ethan clean up. They stacked chairs, laughing about a guest who'd spilled wine on a sculpture. In the quiet, Marcus took Ethan's hand, pulling him close. "You're amazing. You know that," he said. Ethan's heart swelled, not with the desperate longing he'd once felt for Jamie, but with something steadier, truer. "You're not so bad yourself," he teased, kissing Marcus softly. The next morning, Ethan woke to sunlight streaming through his window, Marcus asleep beside him. He slipped out of bed, grabbing his sketchbook, not for a proposal, but for himself. He drew the city skyline, bold and vibrant, a reflection of the life he was claiming. He thought of Jamie, of the proposal that had broken and rebuilt him, and he realized something profound. Planning that moment hadn't just been about Jamie's love. It had been about Ethan learning to love himself. He started a new painting that day, one inspired by the rooftop, the lights, the lilies. But this time, it wasn't about loss. It was about possibility, about the beauty of choosing yourself, even when it hurts. Ethan hung it in his living room, a reminder of the journey, of the man he'd become. As the years passed, Ethan's life grew fuller. He and Marcus moved in together, their apartment a mix of art and warmth. He planned events that brought joy to others. But now, he did it for himself too, for the love of creating something beautiful. He saw Jamie and Lena occasionally, their lives intertwined but separate, A friendship that had weathered the storm. One quiet evening, as Ethan sat on his balcony, the city glittering below, he thought about the life he'd wanted with Jamie. It hadn't been his to live, but it had led him here to Marcus, to his art, to a version of himself he was proud of. The pain had been worth it, not because it led to a happy ending, but because it led to a true one. Ethan smiled, the stars above bright and endless. And for the first time, he felt like he was exactly where he was meant to be.